Ladies and gentlemen, pull away like this, and he'll start thinking about you day and night. Not because you played games, not because you created drama, but because you changed your value, your focus, and your availability. There is a powerful difference between chasing attention and commanding respect. Most people never learn it, and that's why they stay stuck, overgiving, overtexting, over-explaining, and wondering why the other person slowly loses interest. Most people make the mistake of putting their emotional spotlight entirely on one person, and the moment they do that, their world starts shrinking. Their schedule bends, their priorities shift, and their mood begins to rise and fall based on messages, calls, and attention. The energy becomes centered outward instead of inward. When you shift your focus back to your own life and goals, something powerful happens. Your emotional balance returns, your confidence stabilizes, and your presence becomes naturally more attractive. Instead of watching your phone, you start watching your progress. Instead of tracking someone's responses, you start tracking your growth. Your daily routine should not be built around waiting. It should be built around movement. When your day is structured with purpose, work targets, personal development, health habits, creative projects, learning, and meaningful social connections, you stop feeling emotionally dependent on one channel of validation. Fulfillment spreads across multiple areas of your life, and that makes you emotionally stronger and more grounded in every interaction. People can feel when they are your only source of excitement. That pressure quietly pushes them away. But when they see you engaged, productive, improving, and genuinely busy with meaningful pursuits, your value rises in their perception. You are no longer someone trying to be chosen. You are someone already chosen by your own mission and direction. That changes the dynamic without a single word being said. This also changes how you communicate. When your life is full, conversations become intentional instead of constant. You speak with presence instead of urgency. You listen better because you're not anxious about securing attention. You share updates about what you're building, learning, and achieving, which naturally creates respect and intrigue. Progress is attractive. Purpose is attractive. Direction is attractive. Focusing on your goals also protects your emotional stability. Rejection, delays, or mixed signals don't hit as hard when your identity is not wrapped around one connection. You don't panic when plans change because your life has multiple pillars holding it up. Your self-worth stops being negotiable when you invest in your body, your skills, your finances, your mindset, and your passions. You become more centered and less reactive. You don't chase conversations, you bring substance into them. You don't seek constant reassurance, you operate from internal assurance. Your time becomes structured, your standards become clearer, and your energy becomes more disciplined. Being warm but not always instantly reachable changes the emotional dynamics between two people in a subtle but powerful way. When you are constantly available, always replying within seconds, always ready to adjust your plans, and always present on demand, your accessibility becomes predictable. Predictability feels comfortable, but it rarely creates anticipation. When someone knows they can reach you anytime without effort, they stop valuing the access. Your responsiveness should come from calm choice, not emotional urgency. Overavailability often grows from fear. Fear of being forgotten, replaced, or misunderstood. That fear pushes people to respond too quickly, agree too often, and stay too present, even when it disrupts their own priorities. But emotional strength shows when you can stay warm and kind without placing someone at the center of your availability. You can care without hovering. You can be interested without being on standby. Not being instantly reachable does not mean ignoring messages or playing childish delay tactics. It means you are engaged in your life when messages arrive. Sometimes you are working, sometimes exercising, sometimes resting, sometimes spending time with others, sometimes simply offline. Your response time reflects your real schedule, not your anxiety level. This natural spacing creates breathing room in the interaction and prevents emotional saturation. When responses are not immediate every time, conversations gain rhythm instead of rush. There is space to miss, space to think, space to wonder. Anticipation grows in gaps, not in constant contact. People value interactions more when they are not unlimited. Limited access increases perceived importance. Unlimited access reduces urgency. Warmth must stay in your tone even as availability decreases. Short replies do not have to feel cold. Calm replies do not have to feel distant. You can be friendly, respectful, and engaged without being endlessly present. The difference is emotional posture. You are standing beside the connection, not leaning on it. This shift also improves your self-control. Instead of reacting the moment you see a notification, you choose when to engage. Choice builds confidence. Reaction builds dependence. When you choose your timing, you send a quiet message that your time has structure and value. Structured time signals maturity and self-respect. Over time, this balanced availability teaches others how to treat your attention. They become more thoughtful with their messages, more intentional with their invitations, more respectful of your schedule. Effort increases when instant access decreases. Interest deepens when interaction is not automatic. Your presence begins to feel earned instead of assumed. Over-explaining is one of the most common signals of hidden insecurity in communication. When someone feels the need to justify every decision, every delay, every boundary, and every preference with long emotional paragraphs, they are often trying to prevent disapproval instead of simply expressing truth. Confident communication is different. It is clear, calm, and contained. It gives the necessary information and then rests. It does not chase validation after the message is delivered. When you over-explain why you're busy, why you can't meet, why you didn't reply sooner, or why you feel a certain way, you accidentally lower your perceived certainty. The listener starts focusing less on your words and more on your need for acceptance. The message becomes heavier than it needs to be. A simple statement like "I'm not available tonight" carries strength when delivered calmly. Adding 5 extra sentences to soften it often weakens the impact and invites negotiation. Simple communication shows emotional stability. It suggests that you are comfortable with your choices and do not require immediate approval. People tend to respect boundaries that are stated plainly more than boundaries wrapped in excessive apology. The more you try to cushion every statement, the more flexible and uncertain your position appears. Precision creates authority in tone, even when the topic is casual. This also applies to emotional expression. Sharing feelings is healthy, but flooding every conversation with long explanations of your internal state too early creates imbalance. Emotional pacing matters. When every small misunderstanding receives a large emotional speech, the connection starts to feel pressured. Measured sharing builds curiosity and depth. Oversharing builds fatigue and predictability. Shorter messages also reduce misinterpretation. The more words you add, the more angles the other person can question, analyze, or challenge. Clear and direct language leaves less room for confusion and emotional spirals. It keeps conversations grounded instead of dramatic. Calm brevity is not coldness. It is discipline in expression. There is also power in silence after a clear statement. Once you communicate your position, you don't need to keep talking to defend it unless clarification is requested. Let your words stand. Let the other person respond. Constantly adding follow-ups to reinforce your point signals doubt in your own message. When your communication becomes simple and grounded, your presence feels steadier. You sound more re-centered, more mature, and more self-assured. Your words carry weight because they are not overcrowded. Your tone feels composed because it is not chasing agreement. Each sentence serves a purpose instead of seeking reassurance. Many people give their full attention, time, and emotional access far too early and far too easily, even when the other person is showing minimal effort. They reply instantly to dry messages, accept last-minute plans repeatedly, tolerate inconsistency, and continue investing energy without seeing matching intention. When maximum access is given for minimum effort, there is no incentive for the other person to increase their contribution. Human behavior naturally adjusts to the lowest requirement that still receives reward. Attention is a reward. Time is a reward. Emotional openness is a reward. When you treat these as unlimited and automatic, they lose perceived value. But when you connect them to effort, consistency, and respect, you create a healthy exchange. This is not manipulation. It is emotional economics. You are aligning your investment with what is actually being returned instead of what you hope will eventually appear. Rewarding effort means noticing patterns, not promises. Someone can say many impressive things about their intentions, but effort shows in actions. Planning ahead, following through, listening carefully, respecting your schedule, communicating clearly, and showing reliability over time. When these behaviors appear, your warmth and availability can expand naturally. When they are absent, your access should not remain unlimited. If someone cancels repeatedly but still gets your full enthusiasm every time, you teach them that your standards are flexible. If someone gives one-word replies but still receives long, engaging conversations from you, you teach them that they don't need to participate equally. If someone disappears and returns without explanation, and you immediately restore full closeness, you teach them that inconsistency has no cost. Matching energy is not pettiness. It is calibration. You are adjusting your output to the input you receive. Conversations become balanced instead of one-sided. Plans become mutual instead of chased. Interest becomes demonstrated instead of assumed. This balance protects your dignity and prevents emotional burnout. Tone matters while doing this. You do not become cold, sarcastic, or hostile. You remain polite and composed, but you reduce extras where effort is missing. You stop overextending. You stop carrying the interaction alone. You allow space where participation is low. Calm reduction is more powerful than emotional confrontation. This approach also filters seriousness. People who are genuinely interested respond to reduced access with increased effort. They step forward, clarify intentions, and become more consistent. People who are only enjoying free attention usually fade when effort is required. The difference becomes visible without arguments or emotional speeches. By connecting your attention to demonstrated effort, you create a structure where respect grows naturally. Your presence feels earned instead of automatic. Your time feels valuable instead of endlessly available. Your engagement becomes selective instead of reflexive. Staying calm and self-respecting while pulling back requires a shift in mindset that many people never embrace. Most people confuse pulling away with punishment or emotional games, but the truth is that it is about maintaining your dignity, protecting your energy, and demonstrating that your life and self-worth are not negotiable. When you act from calmness instead of frustration, your behavior communicates strength without words. Emotional reactions often give away neediness, but composed detachment shows that your attention is valuable and must be respected. Self-respect is the foundation of this approach. When you value yourself enough to step back, you establish boundaries without hostility. You no longer accept being treated inconsistently, disrespected, or undervalued. Boundaries become natural extensions of your self-worth, not tools for manipulation. You do not lash out when someone fails to meet your standards, nor do you plead for recognition. Instead, you calmly create space. Letting your presence and absence speak for you, calmness allows you to observe behavior objectively. When you are emotionally stable, you can notice patterns instead of reacting to every impulse. You can distinguish between someone who is genuinely interested but busy and someone who is consistently neglectful. That clarity prevents wasted emotional energy and helps you respond in a way that reinforces your standards without unnecessary drama. People notice when you are steady and balanced, and it subtly increases their respect and consideration. Pulling back with dignity also changes the dynamic of interaction. When someone realizes that your attention is no longer automatically available, they begin to reassess their own effort. They start thinking about the ways they may have taken your presence for granted, and curiosity begins to emerge naturally. This recalibration happens because you are no longer chasing or reacting. You are demonstrating that your energy is intentional and selective. Composure also protects your internal peace. Emotional overreaction often leads to regret, confusion, and exhaustion. By maintaining calm while distancing yourself, you preserve your own mental and emotional health. Your focus remains on your growth priorities and personal fulfillment rather than on manipulating or controlling someone else's feelings. You are reclaiming ownership of your time, energy, and attention. Another important aspect is consistency. Calm, self-respecting withdrawal must be steady. Inconsistency signals neediness or unpredictability, which undermines the effect. When your actions match your internal standards and your boundaries remain firm, your presence becomes magnetic, your absence becomes meaningful, and your interactions gain depth. People begin to notice without pressure, and the dynamic shifts naturally in your favor.